My battle buddy, her name was Sergeant Hall, and she found me shortly after I'd been assaulted. And one of the things I remember her saying was, I went through the same thing. You can come talk to me." And I just shut down. I'm like, I'm
Is this
fine.
like a norm in the military for women that go through this?
I would hate to say that it is a norm, but it is. I mean, I think that it's not as bad as it used to be, but not only women, but men also are getting assaulted as well. It's not just one or the other anymore.
Or is it by just regular? Is it by your superiors or just?
I wouldn't necessarily. Well, the guy that assaulted me was the same rank as me.
Wow.
So I don't think it had anything to do with rank.
Okay.
He actually had violated 9 other women in the state, and only 2 of us knew each other. The rest of us, we didn't know each other. We'd never served in the same unit or capacity together, but all of us have the same story.
So like when they get one strike against them, or somebody brings it up, or someone puts a just a complaint out, they don't make adjustments to take them out.
Well, I think a lot of women, we don't come out and we
Right.
don't say what's happening, especially when you're in the military, because I remember people saying don't go in the military because we don't want to see you get assaulted. They don't treat women well in the military. For me, I think it was a little different. Like, I earned my respect. I never was disrespected by men that I served with, ever.
Right.
Up until that one moment, but it changed me. It did change me.
So we were talking about your. Actually, can you close that door for me? So we were talking about your book earlier. Can we reflect back to your book and talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, Veterans Unchained it's called Veterans Unchained: Breaking the Cycle of Trauma One Link at a Time. It's myself and 17 other veteran women from all branches of the service and all eras of service. So we have Vietnam veterans, we have the Gulf War, and what they went through, some of the traumas that they went through, I think were more traumatic than what we went through in OEF and OIF era. But again, not necessarily. It's so hard when you've been in the military and you try to come out as a civilian woman. I mean, it's already hard to be a woman in general.
Right.
And then you turn around and you've been educated. For me, I was a bodyguard in the Army. So I knew how to fight. I knew how to shoot. That was my job, was to protect my chaplain. But I also, not only did I have a side that was combative, but then I also had the, I guess you would say, like the counseling aspect of it, where I would have to, assist soldiers with traumatic events, suicides, you name it.
Right.
There have been a number of things that I dealt with in the military. And I think it was just a shock, like just being stunned, like, did this really happen? Because my whole career was wonderful. Like I said, I got on the honor guard team. Jerry was my honor guard captain, and I thought he was crazy for asking me on the team, but he said I was going to get paid, so I was like, okay. And it was the best thing I ever did. My sons got to see them and admire them and admire me, look up to me, look up to what I did and be proud of me.
So how did you process all of the things going on with other people when you were going through so much yourself?
I didn't. I think I self-destructed. In 2018, well, it was before that. It was about 2011. I was diagnosed with lupus. I was still recuperating from my accident in 2008. And I literally started just imploding, cutting off people in my life, not speaking, not really being around people. I let myself get discharged out of the Army, not dishonorably or anything like that. I just didn't try to re-enlist or anything of that nature. And I didn't let anyone know what had happened whatsoever.
Right.
But what I did try to do was focus on my kids and my family. And I realized that I was trying to focus on other people's problems still to avoid my own.
When was the breaking point for you where you're like, you know what, I have to let this out, or I'm going to kill myself internally?
In 2018, when Vanessa Guillen was killed, she was murdered on Fort Hood, and I realized that I was her, but I survived. And that was, I think, the most important thing, that I wanted to get the message out to those of us who have survived and are still fighting through it. And I finally came clean. I told my family what was going on. I told my sons what was going on, and everyone told me to fight.
Right.
And I did. And I decided that I needed to get my story out. I needed to let people know what had happened, not to be a bandwagon. I think that there are a lot of bandwagon issues going on right now in society, but this is an issue that is very, 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 very relevant to today.
Right.
And I see a lot of women just come out of the military completely discouraged.
Absolutely.
Completely lost. We don't know how to fit in with other civilian women. I wasn't a cookie cutter mom. I didn't bake cupcakes and, for school events all the time, or, I was working. I was always working. But my children started struggling, and I realized that I needed to get myself together so that they could get themselves together. And that was my breaking point.
Wow. So, I know we talked earlier about the homeless situation, and it was so deep because you said it wasn't because you didn't have money, it was because you were just done.
I was. I wound up being homeless again. Like I said, not because I didn't have any money or couldn't afford to stay somewhere. I literally could not make a decision. I could not figure out to go north, south, east, west. I did not know what to do, and that was not me.
You just had a break.
I did. And that was definitely, I would say between 2016 and 2018 were my breaking points. My father passed away. I had a son go to prison, and I had a son who was diagnosed as being bipolar manic depressive part schizophrenic. And here I had spent my whole entire career helping soldiers through battle fatigue stresses, which are the same thing as, like being bipolar or schizophrenic. And I wound up realizing that I could not help anyone at all if I could not help myself.
Yeah. Because internally you're like just going through it.
Yeah. I was literally just kind of going through the motions, and it wound up that I literally was like, no, I couldn't help any of my friends. I couldn't help any of my family. It made me really start evaluating my crowd, the people around me, and what did I want to do in life? I didn't want to stay stagnant. I had worked too hard in my life, in the military, before the military, to just be stagnant, and I just kept fighting. And then in January of this year, Gina Alderman, she is the one who presented this book and this opportunity to write it. And I'd already been starting to write my story.
Right.
So we had to condense it into one single chapter. And it was really, really, really just healing. And the day that we released the book, like I was saying, my battle buddy that had helped me, she actually committed suicide. The same person that assaulted me assaulted her. And I felt so bad because I didn't even find out until like 2 years after she had committed suicide, because I was just so bogged down in my own, trauma in life. I never reached out to check on her. And then I started feeling like, man, the should, coulda, woulda. I should have reached out. I should have been there. I should have took her up on her offer. Maybe she'd still be here. But I know that wasn't the only reason. She had others. She had a TBI injury. She was in a lot of pain, things like that. She had a really hard time in Iraq. And
I lost a cousin to traumatic brain injury. And it's like, I don't think people understand it's a disconnect.
It is. It really is a disconnect, because even for me with lupus, I'm not the person that I used to be. I'm not as strong as I used to be. I mean, I'm emotionally strong, but physically, no, I'm not physically as strong as I used to be. And I feel like, I had to learn that it was okay to not be okay. It was just not okay to stay not okay.
Yeah, it trips me out, like coming to California and seeing the homelessness, you know. But I've noticed a lot. I've noticed that a lot of them have been to the military. I seen the guy the other day, and they were laughing, but I'm like, no, he's not dancing, he's fighting. You know what I'm saying? I was like, he's physically out here, like, fighting in war, going. And a lot of those individuals out there, like you said, they're not, they have money to eat. They have money to buy things. They just lost.
And it's really bad, because when people talk, like when I laugh because dating civilian men has been so hard because I am very, very independent. I'm very direct, and that directness is oftentimes seen as just being an ass, you know,
Right.
and that's not it. I was taught to be direct. Look who was my teacher.
Yeah, the biggest ass of all, Jerry Dobie.
Yes, Jerry Dobie. That was my teacher. You know,
And he's gonna edit this and fall over. But
say what you mean and mean what you say.
yeah, because when he first came into my life, he really was just getting out of the military, you know, and he was trying to explain to me about, what do you guys call it, the PTSD? And we were in my hometown, and the bag kind of like made a noise, and when I see, I'm like, dude, did you just flake out? He just kind of just flaked out. And me and him became friends, and we used to argue every single week about the magazine, and you need to do this and this and that. And I'm like, I'm not your lieutenant, or whatever you call it. I'm not this. And he's like, it's not lieutenant. You know, we just went back and forth. And then I started to realize that he's better. And I have to be able to be more of a friend versus a boss,
Right.
you know? So I think it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago where we started to I started to find a relatable ground. Because most people would fire him. They would have been like, nah, I can't work with you. You're crazy. You know? So then I started to really find out what his trigger points were.
I know, I love it.
And I'm like, he actually has trigger points. You know, things that he does this,
Yeah.
So when I'm saying stuff, or I'm talking about changing the magazine and stuff, I listen for that. I'm waiting for him to go, And then I know he don't like that idea. Or if I'm bringing somebody on, I'm like, okay, he doesn't like this person.
Right.
So it's like an unspoken thing now. So dealing with or dating someone in the military like yourself, someone has to really take time out to get to know you.
Correct.
They can't just date you. They like
Correct.
really got to get to know
Correct.
your trigger points,
Correct.
know what clicks you off, like know when you have a nightmare, know when you. It's crazy, but it's a lot of patience.
I was taught communication.
Yeah.
You know, I had to be able to communicate. I don't know, if a chaplain assistant, we have to learn all the major religions that the military recognizes, and then provide religious services and support for those troop members. And we may not get assigned a chaplain of our faith if we have a faith. And so it's not a religious position at all. It's a combative position.
Right.
And a
And
lot
why
of
is this so? Now this is the thing. Why is it so important to protect the chaplain like that?
because initially in Vietnam, the Viet
Hold on
Cong.
for one more second. Ladies, y'all close that door for me. Close that door. Everybody, y'all getting y'all drinks and having a good old time.
So,
All right, so question again. So why is it so important for you to protect the chaplain?
So that position came about in Vietnam. The Viet Cong the chaplains would go on the battlefield to issue last rites, and they were always wearing a cross on their helmet. And so it identified
Last
them.
rites meaning?
If a soldier was about to die on the battlefield, the chaplain would go out there and issue them last rites. Like maybe they were Catholic, or
Okay.
maybe they wanted someone to pray with them, you know.
Okay.
That's what the chaplain does. Well, the Viet Cong were shooting them because they were easily identified.
Oh, so the enemy would be trying to kill them, pick them out there. Okay.
Correct.
So you had to go. You basically were in war every day.
Yes. I mean, that's what we're taught. We're taught that. I
Right.
wasn't, thank God, but
Wow.
we were taught.
So are you like right beside them? Are you sniping? How are you?
So we're the ones that, okay, it used to be the chaplains didn't carry weapons. It changed, and I don't remember if it was like between 2008 and 2010, I want to say, that chaplains started carrying a sidearm. They had their choice still.
Right. Are they in the military as well, or are they just chaplains?
No, they go through the whole ordeal. And their schooling is different. You know, well, the chaplains and us, we go to the same school. It's called USAC, the United States Army Chaplain Center School, and it's in Fort Jackson. And the chaplain corps is so small. The Army has chaplains and chaplain assistants. The Air Force has chaplains and chaplain assistants. The Navy has chaplains and RPs, which they call religious personnel. And the Marine Corps does not.
Right.
So they rely on the Navy. So
were you in the Navy?
No, I was Army.
You were Army?
When I first started, but I have worked and been attached to other units because they didn't have enough chaplain assistants to assist them. So like I've assisted with Air Force chaplains, I've assisted with Navy chaplains before, and we did, when we were on the Honor Guard team, we worked with other branches as well, and that was really neat. Yeah. So, but I think the greatest thing I would say in ending this is that I was so nervous how everyone was going to receive my story. And my battle buddy who died, her husband wrote me and said thank you.
Awesome.
You did a wonderful job.
I think those ladies are waiting now.
This is a really big deal. So when I met Shanell, it was through the women's veterans. There was a naval officer that was starting Veterans Unchained here, and she said that let's gather all the women together to do, like a anthology. So I was excited because I was like, oh man, I just want to reach out to like my sisters, and we can belong together and everything like that, and we can do something great for other women, so they don't have to feel alone. They don't have to feel like, oh, I'm so ashamed, I'm the only one going through this, And then I saw a lot of positivity out of it. I was just like, okay, let's do this. I am so excited. And then our mission was to do this together, and then to get out there together and try to go through like different radio talk show first, and then we're trying to get on TV shows and just trying to spread, our message and our mission. But unfortunately, it didn't go well that way, only because, and Shanell will tell you, she they were trying to censor our story, said that our story was too traumatic.
Right.
And I said, what does that mean?
So let's rewind a little bit about your actual story with the book. So what is that about again?
So my book, I Am My Sister's Keeper, is based on a mini biography of me being in the U.S. because I'm an immigrant from Thailand. Okay. So I wanted to give back by going in with the hopes of just be like making a difference, like just motivated and dedicated. And then when I was deployed in 2004, to Iraq, a young soldier, a black soldier named Lavina Johnson, she was brutally raped and murdered. And she was abducted in Balad Anaconda in the camp that we were in, because she lived 2 trailers down from me. Wow. She basically lived next door to me, so she was missing. And I guess the following morning, she was, her body was found outside of a civilian contractor's tent. And they taped it off. They wouldn't let us go in. They would not let any soldiers go in. They were like, stay back, stay back. But then we found out that later on that she was murdered, and she found out something that she wasn't supposed to find out. I don't know what it is until this day. But once I released my book so many years later, her father got a hold of it, and he got a hold of me, and he talked to me. He said, I know you know what happened to my little girl. So like they were trying to burn her body in a civilian contractor's tent, and they removed all her teeth, burned her hair down to her scalp. I mean, they were just ready to burn her. But one of the officers shot her in the head, and one of the cook that worked late at night saw it. Like, they were like, who was that? Because it's a blackout camp. They couldn't make out who it was, who was shooting. So when they approached her body, she was like mutilated.
Wow.
And it was on the news forever, like for over 10 years. And the government, the army just ruled it as suicide. I said, how can it be suicide when, you know, you can see that, you know, forensic can see that she was brutally tortured and raped for about 6 hours.
And you were there that day.
Of course.
You were there.
And then, you know, everybody was talking about it. They're like, no, she got abducted. They killed her. Everybody was saying that. But then, of course, they tried to shut us all down. They were like, no. They were like, she committed suicide. She committed suicide. And everybody tried to come forward. We got shut down. Mm-hmm. And one of the cooks that, you know, remember the one that ran out? She was in the mental hospital. I don't know what they did to her later on. But Dr. Johnson told me she was in the hospital. Mm. And I don't know if she's released or not, but
How long ago was this?
So this was summer of 2005 that she passed. It was 2 weeks before her 20th birthday.
Wow, she
Yes.
wasn't even 20?
Yes. She was 19 when she was murdered.
Jesus.
And this was all over the news. And then once Dr. Johnson found out about me and he called me, we were supposed to go on 60 Minute and Dateline and all the, you know, like the news and stuff like that. They said no. They said it was a suicide. We told you before. Case closed. Went out to the White House, went out to the Pentagon. They will not see Dr. Johnson or the colonel that went with him. And I was supposed to be with them too, but he called me and said no. They said they ruled it as suicide. And then up to this day, we're trying to change the nature of, you know, her murder to homicide. And to have this case, you know, changed and so she can rest in peace. And then after her, there was so many other women before, you know, the big news with Vanessa Guillen from Fort Hood.
Right.
So it was pretty bad.
Now, personally, like, how has this affected you?
It affected me also because I was military sexual trauma. I was sexually assaulted. I was drugged and sexually assaulted before 5 days before I was sent to Iraq. And it was by somebody that I thought I could trust. It was another service member. It was a Marine that was training, because at the time I was doing M16 range. I was doing ammo, and I ran the M16 range, and he came over and trained with us. So we became friends, and then me and him, he was a sergeant, so it was him and I and two of our other friends said that we were going to go to, you know, have a few drinks at the bar and say goodbye, you know, and go to our deployments, you know, before that. So that night, I had one drink and I just collapsed. Wow. And then I felt somebody dragging me, because I was in and out of consciousness, and he dragged me. And I was like, what's going on and stuff like that. And then I just remember the car taking off and then me being thrown on the couch and being sexually assaulted. And then when I came to, it was in the morning, he tried to say that, oh, you wanted this, it was consensual. I said, no, it wasn't, you know, don't like, and it was really horrible. Like, I didn't talk to anybody because I was leaving. And then at the time, my daughter was 7 months old.
Right. Yeah,
I was a new mother, and that was already very sad for me, you know, and I had to leave. So it was devastating. So I had all this trauma, but then, like, I'm one of those people that I know it might not be healthy or a good thing, but I'm one of those people that can block it off and then just, you know, like, work every day, do my mission or whatever, and work out. But in the back of my mind, you know, like, it's in the back and I can still think about it. But yeah, so it was bad. And 2 years after that sexual assault incident, he tried to, he found me on social media, on Facebook, when Facebook was a thing, when it was popular, and in 2009, I believe. He found me and he was like, hey, I really need your forgiveness and stuff like that. And I said, no. I said, don't contact me. I don't want to talk to you. Why are you contacting me? He said, I found God is so important that, you know, that you please forgive me for, you know, all that I've done. I said, absolutely not. So I blocked him. 10 years after that, I was stationed in Korea, and they found that in my medical record I was sexually assaulted. So they forced me to find the guy, because there's no statute of limitations. So I was like, you know what, I don't want to do this. I said, I do not want to do this. This is water under the bridge. I don't. And then my company commander was like, no, we're gonna find him. We're gonna put him in jail. I said, I'm not going to court. I do not want to do this. And then they were forcing me. So NCIS got involved, tried to look for him, and they said that they couldn't find him. So I have no idea what happened. I don't know if he passed away when he was, you know, reaching out desperately for forgiveness. It might have been something really major in his life, but I was just like, I don't want to deal with that,
Right.
you know, because that, I just want it to be over. I don't want no confrontation. I don't want to go to court. And then, of course, I had to tell my family. Of course, I wrote in the book. Now my family knows, and they were like, you know, devastated because I'm the youngest, you know, of 3 girls, and they were like, I can't believe, you know, we let, you know, you go to the service and this happened. And then also in the service, the saddest thing is that women just will not get along.
Right.
They're always not supportive of one another. Every time if they don't like one another and then something bad happens, they laugh about it.
But you ladies are proving it wrong right now by working together. You said it's about 16 people, 16 ladies in this book.
Yep.
So this is awesome.
So, and with that, and then now it is mostly me and Shanell now that she, you know, come and live with us, because the thing that about the lady that presenter of the book, and Shanell will tell you, she tried to like whitewash her story and said it was too, you know, we need to be more Christian, we need to make trauma nicer. How can you do that? What does that mean?
Well, I mean, it's the same, like what you just said. You were like, you know, everybody has their way of not dealing with it directly. It's hard, you know. It's emotional. People don't want to be chastised for it.
Because like we're telling the truth here, you know. There's no such thing as making it nice or, you know, and stuff like that. And then we just felt like they weren't real with it, and they were trying to be like, they were like, we weren't even finished with this project yet, and they were already writing something else ahead and ahead. Like they were like doing too much. And
because it's hard. It's probably harder for them. Just think about your family being supportive, and then their family is probably maybe not so supportive, or maybe they're ashamed. It's hard to really admit to those types of things, especially when you've been violated, you know. So, but you sticking through this, like, how's it affected your life?
Oh, of course, you know, I was ready for it. First of all, like I threatened, you know, to get kicked out of the Army because they weren't happy about me shedding light on this, you know, because they're trying to, you know, not have that be out there like that. But it's nothing new, you know. I mean, I'm just telling my side of the story, what happened to me and the people that I served with.
Right.
And of course, you know, I changed the names for privacy purposes. But it happened. It still happened, and I'm fighting for it. It happened to me, and I don't want it to happen to, you know, like, I have an 18-year-old daughter. I mean, she's not going to the military, but might be somebody else's daughter, you know,
Right.
like cousins and friends.
And this happens outside of the military. It's just people, you know, which is sad.
It is.
It's real sad. You know. So I don't even know how to ask this question. I mean, new beginnings. Like, where do you start somewhere?
You know what? I'm so glad you asked that, because so I was a mess. I was like, my life was just like down in the drain. When I got out, I was in a very toxic relationship, and I was in my lowest point in life. Like nothing was going right for me. I was like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? And my mission when I got out was, I just want to, you know, spread the word and write this book. So I did it. And then, but I just was in a very bad place. And then I discovered positive affirmations and meditations. I mean, like, I'm from, you know, Asian ethnicity, so we already do that and eat well and healthy and stuff like that. But I started doing vision boards. I started doing gratitude journals. That's what got me through. It changed my life so much. Like, and I could see the difference, and then me wanting to get up every day, and then I work out every single day. Like, I get up at 5 o'clock, and I would go jogging down the beach or something like that, and I would do something positive for somebody. Like, as soon as I get out the door, it could mean like giving someone a compliment, or, you know, like just talking to somebody, just being positive at all times. And I can see my life changing.
Right.
And then once I started doing my vision boards, and you know, everything's just coming true, and here I am, you know.
So we'll do this last question before we get to this Zoom. You said life changing. So going back to that particular day where you had to face this, what would you change? What
If
would
I was to go back where?
to the day of where everything happened with you? What would you change with the maturity that you have now, with the knowledge you have now? What would you change then?
I think what I would change is not to be so trusting, because you know when you're so young and so friendly, you think everybody's your friend. You know, because of the naive, like being young and just being out there and everybody's nice to you, and then you're like, oh wow, that's my friend. You know, yeah. Being too trusting, because not everybody's your friend, as we all know it. Because when I got out of the military, all the people that thought had my back and loved me never did.
Right.
That one hurt a lot, you know, because you're telling these people, you know, you're like, oh man, this is my family, because you know that's all we have, right? Because you know we're at war, we're you know in somewhere different, so of course that's family. So we're gonna confide and come together as a community. They don't think like that. They do not think like that. They just look at you like, yeah, she's so stupid, or you know, even when I'm kind to somebody, like one of my friend, she was another soldier, she lost her pair of shoes, running shoes. I didn't want her to get in trouble, so I went to buy her a new pair, and she told one of my other friends that I was stupid. Oh, I can't believe she went and spent $80 on just buying me a new pair of shoes. Her screw must be loose, she said. I was like, wow.
Because you care.
Yeah.
And that's society. That's really what's so messed up about everything now, is that, you know, even with me, I'm really kind, and people take that for, oh, why are you so nice to me? You know, people are scared.
Yeah, they think that you have an agenda. Like, ooh, why you do that? Why you? I'm like, dang, I can't just give you something to be nice, because I mean it's sad, because a lot of people do expect something back. So they expect everybody to be the same, because it's rare to find someone with that kind of heart, you know.
And you have a big heart, so with all that you've been through, you're still giving. You know, so that means something.
Yeah, I don't let anything, now that I'm so strong, like, you know, spiritually, I don't let anything get to me at all. Like, you know, when people, you know how back in the day, the younger day, people would be like, hey, such and such is talking about you, and you're like, oh, what, where, when? Now I'm just like, oh, for real? Okay, well, let them talk, at least they're thinking about me, what's it about? You know, now I'm just like that. I don't even get mad. I'm like, oh, for real? Okay, you know? Yeah, now it's different. It's so different. Back in the day, would have been wanting to fight somebody. Who said this? Who said what? I'm like, now I'm just like, I just laugh about it, you know. I'm like, dang, they're still thinking about me, talking about me. Must be something.
Definitely. So what messaging, when they read this book, I Am My Sister's Keeper, what do you want people to get from this book when they read it?
So what I want some people to get from this book is that, like, it's, you know, yes, the book is I Am My Sister's Keeper because it was for not just Lavina Johnson, but all the sisters, and of course brothers too, even though it doesn't say that, because you know men, they don't want to come forward with that. So, but it's mostly sisters, because I will always have my sister's keeper, you know, be there for them and have their back, no matter if I'm out of uniform, in uniform, or out of uniform, military or not military. You know, your family when it comes to trauma or something like that. And I want them to, and I just wanted them to know that this book is not just about, you know, something depressing like, oh my God, MST, sexual harassment, rape, or whatever. It's not. It's actually how I overcame. You know, it's the message is important. It's how I overcome, because people always ask me, how do you do it? Because you look fine, you look happy, you look healthy. You know, but it's the kind of disability that people don't see. Right. So, and I wanted to say that this is how I did it. So at the end, it's like a whole, you know, like transition from being like this victim to becoming a survivor, and now, you know, like helping people, you know, stand up for, you know, themselves, which is really great, because Shanell she stood her ground. So that just goes so perfectly with me, because we need to stand our ground, because and then if one sister, you know, like is feeling like she can't, well, the other sister will come up and scoop them up and be like, I got you, you know. We are our sister's keeper. She stood her ground. So I love the theme, I love the message that, you know. And this is really great. Like I just feel so blessed to be here, because this is,
and standing your ground is a message for the world, because it's very important for you to know that the person next to you is going to catch you when you fall. It's very important, you know, and a lot of people don't understand it because we weren't taught. You know, a lot of times we were taught to run when we seen stuff. We weren't taught to, hey, what's going on here?